Greetings, friends, and welcome back to Space Food Truck. I'm Phwop, and we are going to be talking about how to play Space Food Truck. Primarily, I'm going to actually read you the instructions first, and then we're going to take a little second to look at it. The basics. Space Food Truck is a deck building game. Each player begins with their own individual deck of 10 cards. They'll add at least one new card to their collection each turn. Fundamental tip for deck building games: don't be shy about destroying your cards. Very true. The chef is great at destroying cards, even to the point that you could give him other people's shitty cards and he could destroy them. Next to your hand, you'll see 2 pots: draw and discard. When you finish playing your hand, all your cards will go to your discard and you'll draw a fresh hand of 5 cards. When you buy something new from the Zapmark store, that also goes to your discard pot. Your discards are shuffled and recycled back in the draw pod when it runs out of cards. So whenever you need to draw more cards than exist in your draw pod, then your discard will be emptied, shuffled, and put into your draw. So that means you cycle through your cards regularly, which is the basics of a deck building game. To win the game, you and your crew must complete all the objectives at the top of the screen, using your cards to craft each recipe and take to the planet that craves it. Each character has a different responsibility, so this is a cooperative game, and each player can take control of one of 4 characters, or you can play local, hot swapping as many characters per person as you like, including playing all by yourself. But the basics of each role are: the captain moves around the galaxy and stocks the Zapmark, which is the communal purchasing area for the other players. The chef collects ingredients and cooks the recipes. The scientist unlocks stronger cards for your team, and the engineer repairs and upgrades the ship. Very key, all of them really important and well balanced from my experience with the game. So reading the card. Power. The orange number up here is power. Cards with power usually combine with your character's job cards to charge them. For example, the chef's cook card is useless by itself, but by playing cards with power alongside it, you can cook 1 or more ingredients. Silk cards tend to have high power values. Silk is the power source in this galaxy, kind of like neutronium or dilithium or whatever. So silk cards generally have high power and some amount of worth. Worth. Every card in your hand has a blue number that is called worth. The sum total of these is the amount you can spend in the Zapmark store, that is the communal stock that the captain refills, at the end of your turn. Ingredient cards tend to have high worth values. So the worth is, whether you used a card or not, as long as it is in your hand at the end of the turn. Used cards do not get discarded, they just get played. So, they count as part of your hand. So all your used cards, all your unused cards, as long as they aren't discarded cards, you take that worth, add it together, and then you can spend that much to buy new cards for your deck. You can buy multiple cards, but since this is a deck building game and it's going to force you to draw, and your deck is going to inflate over time anyway, and that's a big problem in this game, you're probably just going to buy 1. You need just enough worth to buy a good card, but not so much worth that it's wasted. Moving. If a card has a movement tag at the bottom, here, move, kitchen, playing it will automatically move your character to the room shown. If that room is inaccessible, you can't play the card. Hall passes are a special movement card that can take you to any room in the ship, so long as the doors are all working. Moving around the ship is really important because you can move to another character's location and give them a card, which is a great way to set up really powerful and effective turns. Doors break all the time, so being locked out of your room is a big problem. And if you really need to do something, make sure that whoever needs to do it is in the room required. Notably, the engineer's trusty wrench card, which repairs the ship, can be used from anywhere, so he can't be locked out of using the repair action that would actually undo damaged doors. And charging cards. You play a card to use the special ability written on it, such as cook. For every 2 power played with it, toss an ingredient from your hand or discard into the pot. But when you're using its orange power to charge another card, you ignore what's written on it. For example, using a hall pass lets me move my character to another room on the ship, but if I charge this cook card, here, it requires 2 power to charge. With my hall pass, I'm ignoring the hall pass's text completely and using its orange value instead. So then it just becomes 1 power. Your turn. Alright, At the beginning of each turn, you'll get a random event pop-up. Each character gets a turn in a specific order, and then it starts over. Some negative events can be dodged by sacrificing cards with orange power from your hand. If you sacrifice these, their worth does not count for you at the end of the mission, which can really screw up your purchasing phase. Action phase. Now you can play cards from your hand and poke around the ship to help your team complete the current objective. So you can look at all this information. You can find out who's holding on to ingredients, or which deck they're in at least. You can look at the galaxy map, the research progress, or the ship status without it being any particular character. All characters can do all of these. And you can read about crises and how to resolve them before they crush you. Once you're done doing whatever it is you do, you enter the purchase phase, where you have to buy at least one card from Zapmart. Now, you may have 0 worth. Fortunately, there is a free card. Unfortunately, it is one of the worst cards in the game, and you want to avoid making that free purchase as much as possible, which means that the captain has to continuously move the ship around the galaxy, or people will have to purchase that because it'll be the only thing left. And you have to have a decent amount of worth per hand to keep acquiring better cards instead of just decent cards. And then when you end your turn, you draw your new hand, and there's a chance that your deck is recycled. So let's take a look at the captain. The captain's job is to pilot the ship around the galaxy and stock the Zapmart with the loot you find. The captain's job allows her to fly the ship to neighboring planets. To do that, she'll have to charge the faster-than-light engines and then engage them. That is pretty simple to understand. Whenever you travel to a new planet, for the first time you get an arrival event. It may be a hazard, it may be helpful, or it could be a blueprint for an exotic ingredient you need to cook your feast, meaning that you'll be able to stock the Zapmart with a key ingredient. You can cancel your flight path after resolving an arrival event with the dock ship button, so you can make a longer path and you can stop anywhere along the way. Every time you dock with the ship after traveling, the captain's presented with some blueprints that can be downloaded to restock your store. You can also ditch old blueprints if you don't like them. This is really key. This is the captain's job, is to make sure that the best supplies possible are given to everyone without running into too many nasty arrival events. The chef, cooking 101. Your job cards allow you to cook ingredients, which removes them from your collection and puts them in the pot. This means you lose the worth of those ingredients, and they're usually worth a lot. Once all of the needed ingredients are cooked, the recipe is complete, and you can start on the next one. You can only cook ingredients for the current recipe objective, so it's a good idea to work ahead and collect things you'll need later. Yeah, this is an example of a finished meal, and this is one that's in progress. The cheese has been cooked, someone else owns another cheese, and these 2 ingredients aren't yet on the ship. The scientist. There are 4 rows of locked nodes in the lab, 1 for each member of your crew, which you can unlock with your job cards. Each row hides 6 new job cards for that character, plus 1 artificial ingredient. You will have to research at least 1 artificial ingredient to complete your objectives. So you do have to dive into the science tree to cook everything. When you unlock a node, that ability is added to the crew's member's discard pod, and that row's research cost increases by 1, so it gets more expensive to research, or more difficult to research per character as you unlock their cards. And the cards that you do research go to their discard pod, which means you won't get them until your deck is reshuffled. Or you can't get them until your deck is reshuffled. Also, your lab stations can break, preventing you from researching any particular character. Lastly, the engineer, repairing the ships. Your ship's health can never be repaired, so when it reaches 0, the game is over. That's the green up in the top left. Anything else that breaks can be fixed with your trusty wrench, such as shields, doors, lab stations, draw pods. If your draw pod is broken, that character draws 1 less card than they normally would until it is fixed. And the life support, which ignores your shields and deals damage directly to your hull, which is bad. Finally, you can also upgrade the shield capacity and faster-than-light charge that the ship can hold, which is awesome. Alright, so you've heard it all, but let's see it for just a bit. We're going to start a new game on the hardest difficulty, Tie Hot. Alright, all of the text in this game is hilarious. I suggest you read even the stuff in little pictures. You begin somewhere in the galaxy. I'm not sure what difficulty actually changes, so I'm not going to comment on difficulty, but let us take a look. Okay, so it is our event phase for the captain's turn. The captain goes first. The event is a bad one. Bad dream. The captain nods off at the helm after an all-nighter. Discard 2 power to wake up, or we hit a space probe for 1 damage. Now, when you are repairing stuff, it is 1 power for 1 shield point. And this damage is going to go to our shield. So this is actually a bad trade for us, especially since we only have 1 power. We can't actually dodge it at all. Here's our power. See? Taste of the Future has 1 orange. If we had 2, we could dodge this. Since we can't, I wasn't going to anyway. Now, we can play any of our cards, the bright blue ones that match our portrait color, are captain's cards. We have 2 engages, 3 engages, and an ask around. Engage is the primary captain card. Play this with power to charge the FTL drive, then travel as far as your charge allows. So here's our charge, it's empty. And we'll probably play the Taste of the Future here. This has no special ability. This is just a starter card, and equivalent to the worst card in the game. The sooner you can replace these, the better. But it is what provides power to our job cards. So all this is worth is power and worth. Each of these job cards are worth worth, but have no power, you can see. We're going to play Ask Around. Play to reveal a clue for 3 unvisited planets. How about the most pressing questions? Here are our clues. It's all relative, the breaky bounce, and pep talk. I can tell you that pep talk is good, and the other 2 are still the best. We're going to engage. We're going to need 1 charge, so we can make 1 jump. So note our charge increases by 1. And then we can line up this jump. If we had more charge, we could line up a longer jump, and we can still stop whenever we feel like. So we've engaged. Time to fire. A deep space gravity well is generating some kind of time bubble. Discard 3 power to escape its pull, or all of our time-sensitive crises will trigger. Fortunately, it's early enough in the game, we have no crises, so that's not a problem. But this is your arrival event. There's 1 per planet, they do not repeat when you come back. Alright, and then here, we are offered a couple ingredients, and a couple new cards to consider. For one, I hate raw silk. We're going to take these 4. We're going to ditch that. Okay, raw silk is a 2/0 card. It only, even the ingredients have at least 3 worth. This is 2 power, 0 worth, and I find that to be a really bad choice. We do have 5 purchasing power. Here you can track everyone's power and their worth. We have 5 worth on most people and 4 on the last. So we have a bunch of cheap cards and a couple expensive ones in case we get lucky. We can't engage because we have no power for our engage cards, so next phase. And we are going to purchase... none of these things, mammon eggs or poached cheddar cheese, are what we actually need right now. We will need 2 blue meats over time. An anti-pepper, sure. But not 2 anti-peppers. With 5, we're going to grab spun silk. 3 power, 1 worth. An excellent card to replace all your Taste of the Futures with to find a way to destroy those Taste of the Futures. Alright, the chef's turn. We get to draw an extra card. That was our event for this turn. Sweet. Alright, the chef has 2 job cards they start off with, I believe. Cook. For every 2 power play this card, toss an ingredient from your hand or your discard into the pot. You can check your discard here. The captain has all of these cards discarded, and that's her hand. So you can always check other players' cards there. You can check what's for purchase up here. Note the card that the captain bought at the end of her turn is gone. And that if this empties, last resort will always be there for you. A crappy card to inflate your deck and ruin your game. This door is busted. Yay! You can also check the history and chat. Instructions. Game options. Okay, so cook. If we had the right ingredients, which we don't, we could cook them. You can only cook your current target. But one cook action could finish this recipe and begin this recipe if you have the right ingredients and enough power played. Since we can't do that, Taste of the Future, we get to pull a card to our hand, and we get to destroy or discard the next one. We're going to destroy this. While they are the only power-providing cards in our hand, we definitely want to get rid of Taste of the Future wherever possible. And the chef's job is partly to keep destroying other people's crappy cards. So, we are left with 7 worth. Because Taste Test lets us draw an extra card, but we retain its worth even after playing it, that means we get 1 extra card's worth of worth, which is nice because now we have 7 points and can purchase this more expensive X-ray Burnalizer. And then maybe our scientist can get this for 5, and our engineer can pick up an anti-pepper or blue meat. We can also travel to someone, so we don't need 7. That's actually a better idea. Let's travel to the engineer. And let's give him a Taste of the Future card. Okay, so you can give 1 card a turn. They cannot give you that card back on their turn. But they can give you an identical card if they have multiples. What we have here is we gave him this card, which has increased his power and worth by 1. Just an extra card in his hand. Note his draw pod was busted, or that would give him a total of 6, but this brings him up to an average amount. So we have reinforced his turn. He will be able to use it immediately, and of course that worth stacks on top of whatever he had before. We did that because we didn't need 7 worth to get the most expensive card, and he could use 5 to get this silk, and the scientist can pick up one of these weaker cards. Anyway, that is how you move with a hall pass and give cards. You can't give more than 1 card a turn, like I said, but it is a really powerful strategy for helping out someone who needs to do whatever it is they're doing, like fix, more effectively than we can currently. So here, we're going to pick up the X-ray Burnalizer. The chef often has expensive ingredients, which means a lot of worth for purchasing expensive cards. And remember, you can just give those cards to other people. Alright, note that we got our X-ray Burnalizer immediately because when we drew, we ran out of cards in our draw pod and shuffled our discard. So, here we have 3 research cards and 2 Taste of Futures. Not much to do. We're locked in our lab because the door's broken, but that's fine. Research. Play this with power to unlock a lab research node, adding a new job card to someone's discard. Okay, we don't know who should get what card. I tend to unlock, since you don't know what the cards are, there is a chance that they could be kind of worthless. I tend to think the engineer has solidly great cards. Alright, we unlocked another trusty wrench, which means our engineer will be able to repair more often. I like to research the scientist. If I'm researching blind, I'll take the scientist. We'll grab the anti-pepper. See one of those eventually, it'll increase our purchasing power now. Someone's door is busted. Thankfully, these 2 are trapped in their rooms, and the chef can still get back where he's going. We could give something to the chef, but instead, we couldn't. Oh, look, we have a crisis. We need these 2 characters in the bridge. We're just going to spend everything on repairing the ship. First off, I want shield. Draw pod. Bridge door. We'll buy spun silk. Thank you, chef, for lending us your taste of the future. And that is a round. Cosmic Rage. Now, 2 of our lab panels are busted, and we can't research the chef or the engineer. So I think you have a pretty good idea of the basics. Oops. Let's take one more look at the map before we go on. Cyberpunk, we had to discard a card. Alright, so then we have this map. So we have to finish Gazania and bring it here. Jibjor soup, bring it here. Antelope souffle, bring it here. And some of these ingredients, like the Borgia beetle and the mammon eggs. See, it tells you found via traveling the galaxy. We are gonna have to find, like, there's only one place in the whole galaxy that has chocolium power, I believe. Borgia beetle, there's gonna be a couple places, but not many, to offer the Borgia beetle, and the same for the mammon eggs. We also, in the science lab, have to find and research Soylent Pink, Nutripills, and fried fructose, which will be hiding in 3 of our characters' other cards, other research nodes. And lastly, the easier to collect things like the post cheddar cheese, the blue meat, can be found in many places. And we'll have to find 2 mammon eggs. So that is basically how you play and complete the game. Finish your last dish, reach Melbren on time. There is no timer, but note that since your decks fill up, you increase the number of cards in your deck by 1 every turn, you will eventually become inflated. Your decks eventually will become inflated and weak as you draw a bunch of fluff cards instead of the cards you need, without constant trimming by cards that you have to find and be lucky to find. So eventually, also, all of the events will become worse and worse over time. So it is a race against the clock. You want to be fast, efficient, and you want to work towards these objectives as quickly as possible. So that is my introduction to Space Food Truck. I have a whole game playthrough ready to go, 7 episodes long, and I'm going to be playing that in this playlist, and maybe more after that. It depends. I would like to get a successful game in, and I am excited to show you this awesome little gem for those of us who love deck builders and board games. Plus, if you ever want to play with me, send me a message that will allow me to find you on Steam, and we can chat or work it up, or an email. Alright guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy Space Food Trucker whenever you get to play it or watch it. Until then, remember, it's all downhill from here.